Okay, so the last tutorial I was getting started with the animating the bounces for the ball. I've got the Y translate loaded here. Started adding some squash and stretch. I think in the previous one I did a couple of the bounces. I've added a few more here. In follow-up tutorials, I'm going to deal with how to get the ball to translate a little bit in the X and the Z and also land on top of the pillar. But this one, this short tutorial, I wanted to show, so in class we've talked a lot about putting a keyframe, obviously, the peak here, right, where the ball's going to go. And we broke the tangents down here so we could control this. But one of the things is because we're using a tangent handle to mathematically bend this curve, so that moves from here up to this point, you can see that this would be horrible, right, where the ball goes up and kind of floats, right, and then comes back down. So how can we have a little more control? And you see right here I've added a few keyframes into the curves with the purpose of really getting the ball off the ground quickly and up high, because I wanted it to I don't want it to hover, but I just trying to build a little more drama, I guess, and snappiness into the animation. So anything you see, in this, it comes off the ground quickly and it's really holding in the air. So it's pretty close to there, but I just wanted to show that just because we show this as kind of a universal approach to start with, it's a good way to learn how the curves and tangent handles work. You can add additional keyframes to make this a little snappier if you want. So what I did here, I'm going to show a couple of things. So I'm going to select the curve, and I'm just going to right click and say insert key. And I'm not really being all that particular about where it is. I'm going to manipulate that, right? So here's a key, here's a key. And up in here in the graph editor, and you see our little various icons. We haven't talked too much about those other than manipulating the tangents and breaking the tangent handle. These two icons here, it has a magnet with what looks like a comb or a chart or something. So this is snap. So this is the time snap on and off. And really what that allows us to do is make sure that this snaps from one frame to the other to a whole number, right? This is more appropriate actually for when we don't have that many keyframes. Here it's not that big a deal. But I'm going to turn this off, and now when I move it around, there's no snapping going on whatsoever. So what I can do is shape the curve a little bit more, right? In fact, pull it down just a little bit. You can see I have a lot of control, so that I want it to fall really fast towards the end, right? And I'll do the same with this one. Just gonna manipulate it. And it might mean I have to manipulate this curve a little bit. Tone that down, maybe just a little. And the whole reason I put these keyframes here, I don't need the ball to be exactly at that location. It's pretty close, right? You can see it's just off of 98. But you can see it's not perfect, on the keyframe. And I can use that. It's just an extra little control to shape that, because really what I'm trying to do is just get the ball to come off the ground. I could put it at the whole number. I could move this. I could turn snapping back on if I wanted to, right? And put it there and try to do my shaping of the curve from that vantage point if I wanted to. Maybe I move it over another keyframe or another time step. But when you're dealing with a smaller area like this one here, you might run into problems where you just don't have enough keyframes if it's a really short bounce and you're trying to manipulate those. So just keep in mind that sometimes you can turn off the time snap to just have control over where you want that. Where you want a curve or where you want a keyframe to show up if it's helping you manipulate where that is. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this one. So once I select the curve, I'll just right click and say insert keyframe. Right, and again, I'm just using this to get the ball to really just come off the ground very quickly, right? Because I want it to kind of stall out midair. You can't even really see that, I guess, on my little thing. right? So I'm not gonna really deal with this one down here because in the next tutorial, I'm gonna modify the X and the Z so that this actually is going to land on the pillar because it's achieved the height that I want. Let's just play this one more time. Right, so I just wanted to show that even though we had this methodology of approaching the tangents as a starting point for understanding, timing and spacing and the graph editor, there are other things that you can do to tweak these, right, to get the kind of control that you want for your animation. Pull that down just a smidge, right? And there's other things we could do with weighted tangent handles or everything, but I thought I'd show this. All right. This will be the end of this one, and I'll be back with the next tutorial on the X and the Z placement and landing this puppy on top of the ball or the pillar.